Hi, my name is Bill Wright, and I'm working in the area of artificial intelligence and machine learning at Red Hat. And I want to welcome our guests this morning, and I'd like to turn to our guests, have them introduce themselves, and then we will proceed with a panel and a Q&A. So let's start with Jithu.
Hi, good day, everyone. My name is Jitu Raghavendran, Vice President of Telco Digital Transformation Solutions at MICOM OSI, responsible for commercial and technology propositions in the areas of 5G, AI and ML, and telco cloud solutions for various communication service providers across the globe.
Hello, everyone. Greetings of the day. I'm Dhananjay Pavgi, based out of Pune in India, and I lead the competency for OSS, which is Operation Support Systems, which is including some of the AI and machine learning tenets that are required in terms of ensuring that we help our customers operate the networks in the most efficient manner. So that's a quick introduction. Thanks.
Thank you. And Inanch.
My name is İnanç Çakıroğlu. I am Director of Data Science, Artificial Intelligence and Analytical Solutions at Turkcell.
So I'd like to begin by talking about different AI ML use cases and the impact in terms of 5G rollout in various industries, for example, IoT, manufacturing, even site planning, things of that nature. So Jithu, maybe I'll start with you and have you talk a bit about the use cases you're seeing and the different applications from that perspective, from an AI ML angle.
So for us, the AI ML use cases and the impact on 5G rollout for various CSPs is about going through the journey to maintain high performance of the 5G core, RAN, and backhaul, enabling rapid rollout, covering the entire network with a single multi-vendor solution. And there are several pillars associated with it, and I'll actually go through one by one very quickly. The first is about certifying and assuring new vendors to rapidly onboard and assure new vendor equipment across physical and virtual network functions, including Open RAN related network elements. The second one is about assuring the virtualized 5G core itself to monitor and optimize the service and network performance of different virtualized components in real time in the core to support the 5G standalone network rollout. Then it's about assuring the 5G new radios in terms of automation and configuration based on 5G new radio, including serving G Node Bs and intra G Node B handover configurations. Then once you actually go up the chain, it's also about assuring the network slices with proven capabilities to enable assurance-driven closed-loop automation that optimizes business SLAs, including integrations to network and service orchestrators. Then finally, it's about converging with the AI ML-led automation at the core to adopt the machine learning functions for ever-changing traffic profiles to manage the risk with a stepwise expert-led approach, including integrations to ticketing systems and orchestrators as well. So for us, it's also about actually, we are looking at the industry in terms of also running the cloud native applications, especially service assurance platforms to ensure reliability and low latency. Performance analytics can be enhanced with AI ML running over large high-speed data lakes in the cloud, bringing the advantage of multi-data experience of the public cloud. AI ML models can also be trained on large banks of historical data in the data lake, then run on real-time network data to predict and detect network problems faster, including misconfigurations and other anomalies, and deliver immediate remediation actions as well.
That's fantastic. I think one of the most interesting things too are the different applications that are being deployed. And I'd be interested to hear maybe from Dhananjay in terms of the applications you're seeing in the field right now and maybe some of the different permutations, and maybe even talk a little bit about how 5G is impacting those applications.
Sure, Bill. So in terms of the implication of 5G on various industries and pertinent to application per se, right? Almost every industry could be touched upon, but I would take some key ones over here, right? So if you take an example of IoT revolution, so 5G will power IoT revolution with data analytics and predictive capabilities of AI. It would benefit the entire ecosystem, especially the telecom operators will now be able to connect, monitor, and monetize in real time the personal devices, the autonomous cars, the static sensors, cameras, kiosks. So essentially, the touch points from the network standpoint have grown manifold, and hence that's one application and use case that I can talk about in terms of IoT revolution. In terms of connected enterprises, where 5G in tandem with IoT helps in information of manufacturing, logistics, and the marketplace to be collated, collaborated in the real time manner. These technologies help make enterprise efficient and nimble through all the stages of planning, the sales process, and supply chain optimization. So these are the applications that we are seeing when it comes to connected enterprise as such in a holistic manner. In terms of forecasting and segmentation, that's another application area wherein it is going to automate the creation of network slices to support new usage patterns. It's going to help monetize the investments that enterprises are going to do in 5G. And of course, last but not the least, real-time edge analytics is going to play a critical role when it comes to the application state, if you would like, from the perspective of ensuring the success of 5G rollouts across various enterprises. So real-time analytics, faster decision making, and so on and so forth. Thanks.
No, thank you very much. And Inanch, your company, Turkcell, has developed a fascinating platform for deploying applications from an AI perspective. And I'd love to hear more about that. And maybe you could talk a bit about that project.
Actually, I would like to express first of all that Turkcell is a not just a telco company. We are a multi-services technology company, telco in the core, and the digital and the business services like a TechFin, marketplace, energy, health, TV and music services, and entertainment around. So this gives us an opportunity and the necessity to provide high-tech solutions, create value add for such operations like recommendation engines, chatbots, robotic process automations, speech analytics, and the chatbots. Our journey started actually 6 years ago with the internal needs of the Turkcell group and the Turkcell services. And we had some solid needs that we thought that AI would have substantial contribution for the life cycle of these services. And another aspect was digital transformation. We have undertaken a huge digital transformation project at those times, and we thought that the AI use cases, it becomes a good trust for us. So we started this journey and we created some AI services for all our core operations and the multi-services, digital services. And after a while, I'm not 2, 3 years of the operations that we created recommendation engines, chatbots, NLP engines, speech analytics with the speech to text and the text to speech modules, Turkcell AI voice, computer image solutions, AI health solutions, data monetization solutions. We reached a frontier that we realized that we have started to implement each use cases, one by one, and it was very difficult to continue like that since it was not an ideal development environment for our software engineers. It created a repetition of the internal efforts for each cases. It is not a suitable environment for efficient users of resources, and it lacks of scalability. Then we decided to actually transform all these unique services into platforms, and we created the concept of the platformation. When we are talking about the 5G, two things appear: the broader bandwidth and the seamless connection. And when we are trying to think about the broader bandwidth, it creates the environment that the cloud-based services and the cloud-based operations are getting more and more important. At the moment, because of some limitations on the network side, our use cases sometimes they have to start in the edge side. We cannot put all our use cases in the cloud environment, especially for the use cases in the computer image process, for example. Sometimes there is a need for the huge bandwidth usage, and our bandwidth limitations are the barrier for us to spread all these services into the field more. So I think 5G will create such kind of a business, the environment that we can elaborate and we can use our AI services into field more. And there will be many use cases coming with the 5G, autonomous cars, for example, and autonomous cities. It requires many different actually different engines and the different things and the different devices and the chips interacting to each other and to create the harmony in a huge network. So 5G is a solution for such kind of infrastructure, and it will elaborate our AI use cases more. Another thing is the seamless connection. It is also very good for the instant capture of the real-time moment and the real-time events in the field. While I mean, these are all the use cases and the business cases related with the 5G and the AI. And also there is another necessity coming with the 5G. This is another opportunity, network actually operations. What I mean with the network operations, with the 5G, you need to manage the capacity, I mean the network capacity, and manage the allocation of this capacity in real time. So you don't have too much time to reallocate the capacity from one point to another point or to rearrange your network. So the machine learning algorithms will create an environment and infrastructure that the network is actually managing itself. I mean, without any involvement from the human side. Also, fault prediction type of things and the prediction of the cell faults will be another important use case for the operation of the 5G, and the AI and the ML is quite strong in that field.
And so I'd like to move on and maybe ask a few questions about network and service operation centers and the impact of AI and ML from that perspective. And maybe some of the different uses that you've seen, but also some of the advantages and disadvantages from that perspective. So Jithu, maybe you'd like to say a few words about that.
Yeah, sure. A higher level of intelligence is required to deal with the complexity, scale, and diversity of 5G devices and the network itself. The 5G network is disintegrated like Open RAN, vRAN, CRAN, Edge, etc. So assuring of those 5G services requires a system that uses AI, deal with diverse and distributed nature of 5G. And that is what we're seeing, of course, with service assurance aiming in the center to achieve these AI-related use cases for network operations center and service operations center to fundamentally support the following. It's the rapid rollout of 5G new radios and support multiple phases, including onboarding, stabilization, and the maturity phases. Evolution of non-standalone to standalone use cases on demand, and differentiated network slices for enterprise and application-specific SLAs. Then it's the support for the technology itself, including massive MIMO and network capacity and expansion requirements. Then one of the key requirements being how do you actually collapse the silos through cross-domain use cases, supporting pre-5G services and 5G services in the world of transport, shared transport and core, leading to a 5G standalone core as well. And finally, it's the automation of the value chains to guarantee the quality of service and quality of experience to the end subscribers through monitoring of those SLAs and beginning to investigate network slicing through AI/ML driven assurance for monetization of these new services. And that's all the key requirements that we are actually seeing on the field, more specifically on NOC SOCs within the CSPs.
Fascinating. And Donna J, maybe you have a few words to say about that as well, and maybe the different areas where AI has augmented some of these functions, not only from a NOC and SOC perspective, but also in terms of the network itself and some of the functionality. Maybe you can talk a bit about some of the use cases you've seen.
Sure. So let's start from NOC and SOC, right? That's closest to our heart since we are catering to telecom service industry for more than 3 decades, and of course now other enterprises as well. So when it comes to the NOC and SOC per se, and when it comes to operating the networks, we have realized that while the automation has gotten in place in the network operation centers and service operation centers of today, our customers are into that never-ending race, if you would like, right? There was a point when 4G was rolled out, the automation was brought in. There was a bit of a relaxed mood, if you would like, in terms of ensuring that the operations are run optimally. But with the advent of 5G and the 5G ecosystem being rolled out, it's that race that our customers are into in terms of realizing that the automation that they did earlier during 4G era is not sufficient enough, because when it comes to operating 5G network and applications thereof, an ability to make decisions on the fly in the real time manner becomes most important in terms of ensuring success in the business. So in terms of an ability to bring that capability, we have built solutions using open source platforms, technologies, and our partner ecosystem that brings in intelligent automation. And in the long term, we aspire to bring in cognitive automation, if you would like, in our network and service operations centers. That becomes most important when we go across to serve our customer base with large managed services deals, because gone are the days when we were telling our customers that when we take the operations out in an outsourced manner, we will provide you the operational efficiency benefits and things like that. That's like a basic hygiene now. Now the game is from day one of the operations takeover. How do we bring in the intelligence in the way we are operating the network and take it to the cognitive level? So the goal is essentially to reach to self-configuring, self-monitoring, self-healing, self-optimizing, autonomous network operations, if you would like. So that's about knock and SOC. The same concept could be extended to field operations as well, because we do very large field operations across the globe. And that's where the AI and machine learning like technologies are playing quite a significant role. If we take an example of how an operator could think about reducing the truck rolls, right? I mean, every enterprise now is thinking about reducing the carbon footprint, going green, and saving costs. So ensuring that we predict a particular truck roll and detect that a particular truck roll may not be warranted because the problem could be solved remotely. It could be diagnosed, detected, and fixed remotely is what becomes important when it comes to field operations. So that's another use case. Another application, Bill, is could be around the site planning, the way site planning is done, whether it is a radio site planning, whether it is the XHaul, the rollout of backhaul where the fibers are being rolled out. AI and machine learning is playing quite an important role in terms of helping us to tell our customers which is the right location at which a particular sales site could be planned. Let's take an example. Earlier, when it came to radio engineering, it is all engineering aspects which were considered when it came to taking a decision on the place wherein a site could be rolled out. Now, with the kind of capex layout, the heavy capex layout, let me put it that way, that is going towards 5G, the monetization is an equally important aspect that our customers are looking at. And hence, we have some OEM partners with whom we work to tell our customers the precise location wherein if the site is deployed, it would help them to monetize the investments in a better manner than just the engineering aspects. So that's a quick commentary holistically from the network operations, the field operations, and site planning and rollout standpoint, Bill.
Thank you. And it's clear that you're using different best-of-breed partners to basically combine that functionality and really create the best solutions for your customers. And Inansh, on your side, maybe you could talk a bit about the applications that you're seeing in the field and the different uses of AI and ML from a network perspective.
Network operation and the service operation, from my perspective, actually, one of the basic and the first use case of the ML and the AI. And almost everybody starts with the classification of the trouble tickets and the automatic assigning of these tickets to the subgroups. It's the basic text classification and the NLP algorithm. For any kind of operations, I mean, the operations like a Turkcell size, during the day you receive many trouble tickets, I mean, from your channels, from the field, from your engineers, and usually people are, working on these trouble tickets, and they are analyzing each ticket, they are reading that, decided about, I mean, this ticket is about which topic, what will be the decision, what will be the task, and they assign this task to another subgroup. This is a human effort, and you can imagine how many people usually actually working on these trouble tickets. So very basic algorithm, very first algorithms are working. Actually, we're working on that topic, and we automatically classify and assign these trouble tickets. Sometimes automatically solve these trouble tickets. It's a very early, actually, the project of the AI and ML. The second project, almost all the operators are, they're going in that way, is the early detection of the faults on the cells and the switches. On network side, any kind of switch or any kind of cell creates more than 2,000 parameters, actually variables each second, and usually you cannot understand whether a cell or the switch is going on the fault stage. Looking at and monitoring it while you are monitoring, you are sitting in front of your computer and you can manage the network, you can monitor the network, but you probably most of the cases you understand when the fault happened, not before that. So AI and the ML algorithms can analyze these 2,000 parameters instantly, and based on the algorithms, it's a kind of structured learning process. Easily understand couple of hours before this fault happened. This is also a very good example of the application of the AI and the ML on the network. As I said, actually, on the 5G side, self-organized network concept is another example, and another very popular example of the machine learning application on the network side. Algorithms, they are monitors the network real time and to make necessary changes on the network parameters, or sometimes suggest hard actions about what people should do. Also, dynamic capacity allocations and on the data network will be very popular use case for the 5G. Another example is the fraud detection. Fraud detection AI algorithms, they are closely monitoring the network signaling traffic real time, and they take out the abnormalities and to create some alarms. Sometimes they stop the traffic in the case of they detect fraud. Of course, you can expand all these AI and the ML efforts till forever, because for each day and for any kind of improvement on the network side and the technology side also creates an opportunity for our AI and the ML algorithms. But these are the basic ones that I can manage.
And I'd like to move on. And thanks, Inanç, for that comment. I think one of the most interesting things now is the cultural shift that's taking place within companies in terms of adopting AI and ML, and what you all might be seeing from that perspective. And I think that's one of the most interesting and nuanced areas, I think, that we're all running into in many respects. Jithu, maybe you have a few words to say about that in that regard.
Yeah, sure, Bill. I think from a cultural standpoint, as the from a technology and the intention in terms of culture that needs to be changing is, for example, in our AI ML related use cases and closed loop orchestration or automation assisted by AI will really provide an intent based approach, right? And that's one thing that the CSPs and the end users need to actually appreciate, which is very much needed for low latency, high reliability, and connectivity for smart industries. So intent is obviously defined as the business goal that can be unambiguously understood by both humans and machines. However, until the intent-based approach is fully achieved, automation workflows will continue to be written as rules or policies generated by humans for a policy-based automation, number one. And that's pretty much where MyCom OSI offers AI and automation-based service assurance approaches, so that the CSPs and enterprises can assure the connectivity and offer guaranteed quality of service for industrial applications. For this, it provides normalized and high quality data across technologies used in a CSP network, enabling modeling and monitoring the intent itself, which is actually a big part of the cultural change. And we also closely collaborate with partners such as Red Hat to evolve for various strategic AI ops related use cases, from descriptive knowledge-based discovery to predictive to prescriptive and automation-based use cases, leading towards the zero-touch assurance, of course. And for this, of course, the change in terms of culture and collaboration across the various different teams, because even from an end CSP perspective, the boundaries are actually collapsing between 5G strategy planning and program management, performance management and optimization within the NOC SOC that we talked about, as well as the end customers with respect to enterprise, IoT, wholesale business units, and so on. So it's how you generally actually bring in the people, the processes, and platforms together in order to actually deploy those applications and platforms in order to focus on two major things. One, process-led transformation that drives a culture of continuous improvement and value realization, as well as targeting on the specific system outcomes to deliver a level of automation actually building on that value chain. And that's where we see, when you have to actually build towards that zero touch assurance. And within the zero touch assurance, of course, there are several pillars to it in terms of automated assurance onboarding, unified network and inventory models, as well as automated real-time and predictive assurance, leading to autonomic zero-touch operations where culturally people have to actually adapt to this changing world.
It is fascinating, isn't it, the way it's all evolving so quickly? And Donajay, maybe you have a few thoughts about that area as well. And I'm sure from a Tech Mahindra perspective, you've seen in all the interactions you do, you've seen quite a bit of change in that regard and the way people are getting comfortable with it. Maybe you can talk a bit about that too.
Sure. So cultural aspect indeed is an important aspect, and when we look at that, would like to shed some light as regards the cultural aspect across multiple dimensions. One way is to look at the way the applications are used when it comes to implementing AI and machine learning to expedite, to monetize the 5G investments and ensure that we reap real benefits out of 5G. So essentially, as Jitu also earlier mentioned and alluded to, the collaborated approach towards the problem solving is most important. That is the need of the hour, is what I would say. In any large enterprise, from our experience, what we have observed is there are efforts, cautious efforts being put in the form of AI and machine learning being adapted. However, enterprises being large with their own ways of operating, if you would like, what we have observed is they land up repeating the same exercise again and again, right? So, and there are these AI and machine learning models. From our experience, most of these models are reusable. So, what with that particular learning, and to bring in that cultural shift, we did an investment, and some of us would be familiar with our flagship open source platform that we built called Gaia. So the whole attempt is to democratize AI and machine learning, if you would like, right? With the only intent to bring in the maturity faster. So that's a cultural shift, because traditionally we know a department A and department B and department C, while they are striving to solve their own problems, they have bit of their own cultural DNAs as well. So if we have a platform which allows onboarding of AI and machine learning models in a seamless manner, and also have those models reused for the purpose, that cuts down the implementation cycle time drastically, brings in the uniformity, if you would like. So that's from the perspective of bringing in the cultural change from the perspective of using AI and machine learning libraries and applications. Now coming to the employee base, right? We being a services organization, you would imagine that our people who were earlier working on NOC operations and NOC engineers now need to be trained with these new emerging technologies. That's where we have a collaboration with Red Hat, and as we speak, we have thousands of our employees being certified by Red Hat on the technologies that are required to ensure that all these AI and machine learning technologies are implemented in a seamless manner. Be it OpenShift as a technology that takes the burden off the engineer, whether it is a deployment engineer or a development engineer, in terms of ensuring that the life cycle of containers is maintained beautifully in the automated fashion, and they can stay focused on ensuring their AI and machine learning libraries and models work seamlessly. When it comes to the network ecosystem, making composable services for telco network, which are driven through AI, is important. And we have realized that through yet another platform that we have built called NetOps.ai. we don't need to allocate compute space beforehand. That's the beauty of it, as we know. So it's absolutely on-demand services, and a serverless architecture is what we are trying to achieve, and that's a cultural shift, if you would like, when it comes to the architecture community. So that's how I would holistically look at the cultural shift that is happening uh, across various uh, players, if you would like, in the ecosystem.
No, thank you. And Inanch, maybe you have a few words to say about the cultural changes you're seeing as well on your end in terms of your own projects.
The first thing I would like to mention that AI and the ML world, it is not a one man, one team show. You shouldn't see it like that. A common mistake is to think that all you need is to have AI experts in order to be very successful in that area and to create very fancy services. Of course, it's crucial. I mean, if you would like to develop something, you should have a team on, I mean, on the AI expertise side, but it's not enough. AI service, it requires multidisciplinary role. Two role actually that should very closely work and to collaborate with the AI expert. Software developers and the infrastructure teams, they should work together. As I said, you cannot just create a unique services and to put onto the private infrastructure and to expect them to work in a very efficient manner. Cloud native software development is a necessity to be successful in the AI world. And in order to have a good cloud native development and cloud native deployment environment, you have to closely work with the infrastructure guys, actually, the guys who have understanding of the databases, infrastructure elements, Kubernetes type of things, and the microservice infrastructure. You have to put your teams closely working with these guys. Another thing is everybody is going for actually everybody is trying to create a fancy AI services, but the AI services are nothing if you don't have a nice, good, and relevant use case. So use cases are very important for the success of the AI. As I told, software development teams and infrastructure teams should work together. Also, they should work together with the business guys who needs to actually, I mean, who are aware of the needs of usage of the AI for that specific use cases. So agile methodology is a good way of managing things where all these cross-functional teams should involve. So it is create an environment that you can iteratively build and actually develop your services, and you can iteratively enhance and improve your services and see the effect of the service in the field, and if necessary, I mean, the kill it or the improve it. And another thing is the ecosystems. I mean, the building and the managing an ecosystem is also key factor for the AI. AI is a field, from my understanding and my perspective, AI is a field that academic world, startups, vendors, partners, and our company, your company should work together. It is impossible in the AI field to create all these, the platforms and the services and the environment just using your own forces. It is an open source world. It is a totally different world. So the building up the good ecosystem and managing it is crucially important for the success of the AI. And it is a totally new culture. It is a totally new understanding. So it requires a paradigm shift in your managing your own organization in terms of that.
And thank you. That's a fascinating response. I think there are a lot of different ways also that open source plays a role in terms of AI, ML, and the rollouts that are taking place right now. Jyoti, what are you seeing in the field from an open source perspective?
Yeah, so that's a good one, right? For us, the integrations with various different open source components is actually quite important, and across the various parts of our platforms in terms of infrastructure as a service, the platform as a service, and the software applications which are actually on top within Micom OSI's platforms. We use a number of different open source components and also collaboratively actually work with Red Hat in order to bring some of these components, as Dhananjay actually mentioned, as well on the container orchestration platforms and so on. So we've got similar incarnations of various different layers. So let me just actually go through some of those bit by bit. In order to firstly monitor the end-to-end domains on virtual network functions, the underlying infrastructure, as well as the physical layers, for assurance at the infrastructure to capture the performance data with OpenStack layer and offering those intelligent triple correlation between the various different layers of VNFs, Vim, and the NFVI based on platform sites, availability zones, and host aggregates is actually one of the specific use cases that we bring for the NCSPs. Then, in the same way as what we actually use with Prometheus, for instance, and the uniform monitoring of all the different components as the CSPs, where we embrace that open source component, including the likes of, for example, Kafka with distributed event streaming platforms, allowing us to actually correlate information from a multitude of different data sources as well. And one of the other areas that we also actually are involved, in fact, is through Open Network Foundation to offer the assurance of the various transport network functions and integrations to SDN controllers. So this is also a place where Red Hat is actually one of those players which is actually contributing to some of the ONF related functions where we collaborate effectively within the consortium as well. So a combination of the various different layers within the monitoring, big data frameworks, the authorization, the automation, and the AIOps platforms with container orchestration and CI/CD pipelining all actually makes it viable for us to actually bring that effective solutions in the areas of AI augmented 5G solutions in the marketplace.
No, thank you for that. And Dhananjay, what about you?
Yes, so when it comes to the role of open source in this particular space, there are quite a lot of open source tools, libraries, as we know. But in particular, from the perspective of running operations, is what I'd like to bring the attention. So our journey starts right from laying out the telco cloud, right? Red Hat OpenStack is one of the favorite flavors in the telecom industry, especially in the communication service providers fraternity, as we know. And we have built a lot of automations and tools around that to ensure that when it comes to setting up the telco cloud, running the operations on that telco cloud, we do that in a seamless manner. And thanks to Red Hat for bringing out technologies in the open source, be it as mentioned earlier, OpenShift for container management or Ansible Tower, the automation and things like that, which we are leveraging in a great manner to ensure that when it comes to running the operations, especially running operations is the area wherein we are leveraging a lot of open source tools and ecosystems, building our own IPRs and frameworks to ensure that we achieve operational efficiencies and pass on that benefit to our customers. Sorry, another example that just crossed my mind while I was just concluding is when it comes to helping our customers moving to the next gen service assurance solutions, as most of us would know, the next gen service assurance solutions, the journey starts with building up a data lake, right? And then the key question is, what do we use as a technology to build the data lake? And again, thanks to technologies like Ceph storage, which drastically brings down the costs and provides the required technology that is needed to establish the data lake. So I just thought I would mention that as well, because that becomes a foundation for us to build next gen service assurance solutions for our customers.
No, thank you for adding that, and we appreciate the use of Ceph, to say the least. I think AI has driven a lot of adoption there from that perspective. And Inanch, maybe a few words from you about open source and how you see the advantages from that perspective?
I think, first of all, philosophically, open source is a good thing. I mean, this is, as I told you, this is a new world, totally new world, and all our already memorized concepts they already changed and they continue to change. So philosophically, we should be open to the open source because it creates a good harmony, it creates a good collaboration environment globally. I mean, it is not actually the time that you can build close platforms, actually black box, and expect people to just use that. This is a culture of the social media culture that Z generation is coming with that, and they would like to actually interact. They would like to involve. They don't just want to use it. This is the actually the socio-economical fact. This is a philosophical fact, and for any kind of software development, open source is good because you can easily integrate, you can easily understand, and you can easily use and to change it. For the AI world, um, you have to maintain your models, you have to maintain your algorithms with new data sets and different data sets continuously. So you cannot just get the closed box platform and expect to use it efficiently more than 2 years. You have to renew it, you have to actually change it, you have to improve it. So for the flexibility and for the controlling of the models and for the usage of these models for new scenarios, you need to open source because you always need to introduce different variables, different type of data into your model. And another thing is as ML engineers, AI engineers, we like explainability. I mean, we would like to understand what model gives and why this gives like this. So explainability is really, really important. And if you are running your models in the microservice architecture, you need a containerized environment, and you have to make it actually the cloud native manner. So this is all the open source concepts. I mean, the half of your operation and the half of your business is going for the open source. The other half, why not? I mean, why not? It should be on the black box. Of course, sometimes platforms are good. Sometimes black box platforms you need. Sometimes you don't need to understand how this model works, or sometimes usage of this model can last forever. For such kind of things, it's good to use closed box platforms. But for the rest, it is best to use open source for the scalability, resource usage, and the deployability.
And to wrap up, I'd just like to understand maybe some of the lessons you've all learned so far and what you've come across in your journey. And Jithu, maybe you'd like to talk about some of the lessons you've learned.
Sure, Bill. I think the lessons learned along this journey is actually multitude, and that we actually learn with our customers as well as our partners, right? And in the journey of AI ML enabled 5G network and service operations, there are a number of different things. The first is from a technology standpoint, the adaptation to change, streaming, and speed of collection and computation and actions in real time for 5G. And how do you actually sort of drive this based on analytics and predictions and forecasting of states, root causes, and simulations for predictive and autonomic capabilities, right? When it comes to analytics driven, again, automated diagnostics and actions and assurance of the orchestration layer itself. The next one is we are actually seeing quite a lot of requirements which are actually around the zero-touch assurance enablement, onboarding policy, and analytics-driven policies to guarantee the slices and tenancy-facing services to actually assure those SLAs, which are actually quite vital. And one of the key areas, of course, is actually how do you manage them all cloud natively as well, and for all the containers, CNFs, and orchestrated entities. Then the other key area is how do you actually offer super scalable services and elasticity of the management system for self-orchestration of the applications that you're actually rolling out, including the likes that Dhananjay and yourself actually touched on, Bill, with the use of open source components and integrations to other data lake and environments that expose capabilities through open APIs and so on, that will actually enable integrations with the rest of the ecosystem between BSS and OSS systems as well for CSPs. And these are some of the learnings that we are actually going through with our customers as we actually enable higher value in order to actually achieve what they want to achieve for their customers and within their organizations in this journey.
Fantastic. And Dhananjay?
So when it comes to lessons learned, as we know, almost every enterprise is transforming their application estate from on-premise to cloud deployments, which is a paradigm shift for them in terms of moving from capex to opex model. That also poses challenges in terms of the migration of data, if you would like, right? And hence it entails the hybrid cloud deployment strategy being in place to begin with, because the moment we start the journey of implementing AI and machine learning based application ecosystem, bringing in or changing the dimensions as regards the underlying infra and cloud, then becomes very difficult to manage. uh, Another important aspect is low code and no code, right? And the role of open source out there. So upfront selection of right tool and technology, which would help ensure that low code no code strategies being adopted, makes a lot of sense, because otherwise it becomes too late to go back to drawing board and implement that when projects are in flight. Last but not the least, what we have learned is an importance of having what we call it as ML ops discipline in place, which is machine learning operations. We have many AI models. Managing life cycle of those models in flight in production environment is a big headache. And understanding the impact of changes in the machine learning libraries in the upstream and downstream applications becomes important. And hence, having that discipline and set of required automation tools or frameworks, if you would like, being in place is important. Data drift is another important aspect. We know that a smallest change in the dataset format largely impacts the way the AI and machine learning applications would produce the output and the desired outcome. And hence, we have to keep a keen eye on data drift, kind of scenarios, and ensure that they are minimalized or they don't happen. And if they happen, then we should be able to catch those exceptions earlier and provide a workaround. So that's a quick commentary on the lessons learned so far.
And Inanch, maybe you can wrap it up and give us a few of your lessons learned as well.
The first thing is the use cases are very vitally important for the AI journey, successful AI journey. You should ask yourself whether you really need AI ML solution for that use cases, for that specific particular use cases or not. If you are not so sure that what AI will bring to your service or subject area, it means that maybe you don't need it and you shouldn't waste time for the developing of the AI services. So you should be sure about the use cases. You should be sure about what AI will bring, what ML will bring into that use cases, and how you can use your AI services to create a value addition for that specific journey. Uh, for most of the use cases, I don't recommend to create a tailor-made approach for each use cases. It is waste of time and it's waste of money and waste of resources. You cannot continue like that. It is most of the cases. It is best to create reusable services rather than developing one-time solutions for each cases over and over again. So for that purposes, whatever you are building, you should build as a cloud native. The future is a cloud future. I mean, there will be no longer that much on-premise solutions or that much on-the-edge solutions, especially with the 5G. Most of the use cases, especially the AI use cases, working in the environment will be the cloud. So whatever you are building, it should be cloud native. And since you need a cloud native service environment and the cloud native development approach, you need a containerized architecture for scalability, better performance, and efficiency, and the better usage of the resources. And for the containerized architecture, once you are going for this, you have to use actually the good server. You have to be sure that you will have a proper support when you are using all these open source platforms. So you should look for the good partner to utilize actually the cloud native environment and the containerized architecture. And last but not least, you need to manage an ecosystem, the internal ecosystem, all your engineers, all your infrastructure guys, and all your business guys. They should work together for creation of the services, users of the services, and optimizing these services. And the second, your team, your company should work closely in a collaborative environment with the partners, with universities, and with the startups. Building and creating ecosystem is vitally important for the successful AI journey. These can be a summary of what I told actually already.
Fantastic. Well, I want to thank you all today for being with us and really appreciate your time and your insights. And we've gotten quite a bit out of it. So I just want to thank you all for being here today, and just want to say thank you from Red Hat.